He conquered nations. He defied the Senate. He ruled Rome without ever wearing a crown. And in the end, he was killed by his closest friends. This isn't just the story of one man. This is the story of how Julius Caesar changed history and paid the ultimate price for it. Julius Caesar was born in the year 100 BC into an old Roman family, but not a particularly powerful one. Rome at this time was a republic, a complex web of senators, generals, and shifting political alliances. Power was something you inherited, jealously guarded, and rarely shared. Young Caesar had ambition, but he had no army, no fortune, and no real influence. What he did have was a razor-sharp mind, undeniable charisma, and a dangerous belief that he was destined for greatness. Even as a young man, Caesar took risks that others feared. On his way to study in Greece, his ship was captured by pirates. They demanded a ransom for his release. Caesar just laughed. He told them they were asking for far too little. While he was held captive, he acted less like a prisoner and more like their commander. He ordered them around, wrote poems and forced them to listen to his recitations, and casually promised that one day he would return and crucify every last one of them. The pirates thought he was joking. After his family paid the higher ransom he suggested, Caesar was released. He immediately raised a small fleet, hunted down his former captors, and kept his promise. Rome was just getting its first taste of a man who never, ever forgot an insult. Caesar returned to Rome and threw himself into the chaotic world of politics. He knew he couldn't rise alone, so he formed a secret alliance called the First Triumvirate. His partners were Pompey the Great, Rome's most celebrated general, and Crassus, the richest man in the entire republic. Together, these three men controlled Rome from behind the scenes. As part of their deal, Caesar was given command of the legions in Gaul. This single decision would end up changing the world. For nearly a decade, Caesar fought brutal, relentless campaigns across the lands we now know as France and Belgium. He defeated powerful tribes that had resisted Rome for generations. He built bridges and crossed rivers that were thought to be impossible to cross. He crushed rebellions with ruthless, chilling efficiency. His soldiers began to worship him. His enemies learned to fear his name, and back in Rome, the Senate began to worry. Caesar had become too popular, too successful, too powerful. The Senate sent him a direct order: return to Rome, but leave your army behind. They were afraid of him, and for good reason. Caesar stood at a crossroads. He could obey the Senate, return to Rome as a private citizen, and almost certainly be prosecuted and ruined by his political enemies. Or, he could defy Rome itself. In the year 49 BC, Caesar led his 13th legion across a small river called the Rubicon, the legal boundary of his province. This was an act of treason. As he crossed, Caesar reportedly said the famous words, "The die is cast." A civil war had begun. Caesar marched on Rome with incredible speed. Panicked, his old ally and now his greatest rival, Pompey, fled the city with most of the Senate. The war that followed tore the Roman world apart. After years of bloody conflict, Caesar decisively defeated Pompey's forces. Pompey himself escaped to Egypt, hoping to find refuge. Instead, he was betrayed and murdered. When Caesar arrived in Egypt and was presented with Pompey's severed head, he didn't celebrate. He wept. To him, this wasn't a victory, it was a profound tragedy for Rome. Caesar returned to Rome as its undisputed master. The Senate, with little choice, named him dictator for life. He immediately began a series of ambitious reforms. He provided land for the poor and his veteran soldiers. He passed laws to relieve debt, and he introduced a new, more accurate calendar, the Julian calendar, a version of which we still use today. But one thing terrified the old guard of the Senate: Caesar showed no signs of ever stepping down. To many traditional Romans, he looked less like a leader of the Republic and more like a king. And for centuries, Rome had despised the very idea of kings. On the 15th of March, 44 BC, a day known as the Ides of March, Caesar walked into a meeting of the Senate. He was unarmed, surrounded by men he considered his colleagues and friends. Then, the knives came out. A group of more than 60 senators swarmed him, stabbing him again and again. Among them was Marcus Junius Brutus, a man Caesar had mentored and trusted deeply. Legend tells us that Caesar's final words, upon seeing his friend among the assassins, were, "Et tu, Brute, you too, Brutus." He collapsed and died at the foot of a statue of his great rival, Pompey. The man who had conquered the world for Rome died on the floor of its Senate. The conspirators believed they had saved the Republic. They were tragically wrong. Caesar's assassination didn't restore the old ways. It plunged Rome into another 13 years of brutal civil war. In the end, it was Caesar's adopted heir, a young man named Octavian, who emerged victorious. He would go on to become Augustus, Rome's very first emperor. Julius Caesar's death marked the end of the Roman Republic and the birth of the Roman Empire. So why does Julius Caesar still matter? He didn't just conquer lands. He fundamentally changed the nature of politics and leadership. He proved that a single individual's ambition could reshape the destiny of nations. His name, Caesar, became a title for rulers that echoed through the centuries as Kaiser in Germany and Tsar in Russia. More than 2,000 years later, the world we live in is still shaped by his legacy. History remembers Julius Caesar not as a king, but as the man who brought an end to a republic and, in doing so, created an empire. If this story fascinated you, please give this video a like and subscribe for more epic history. And let me know in the comments, do you think Caesar was a hero or a tyrant? Thanks for watching.